Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at a Next.js app I built using resizable React components in Vercel AI SDK. As you can see, we have 6 chatbots, each with its own system message. You can actually change the models or light and dark mode if you like. You can see the system message for this one is that it always answers in JSON. You can actually resize these panels so you can actually chat with just 4 or 2 or 1. This one is instructed to answer in Morse code, binary, and only in French. You can also set the temperatures for this. Like I said, you can change the model as well. You can, for example, stretch this here and chat with just 2 or with just 1 if you want it, just like this. If I refresh it, you see that this configuration panel is collapsible. For example, we can do something like this, change this to light mode, change the model to Sonnet 3.5, extend it so we're only chatting with that, change the system message, we'll only answer with emojis, and ask it to tell me a short story, and it should now only answer with emojis. This was built with Next.js. We will be reviewing the code using React Resizable Panels library and Vercel AI SDK. I actually made a lot of other videos on Next.js. If you just go to my website, ecohive.live, and search for Next. And if you're a patron, you can find the code download links to each one of those projects. And the code files for this project will also be available at my Patreon. Link will be in the description and also in the pinned comment. So now let's begin by reviewing the code to see how we can build something like this. To build a project like this, we need to initialize a Next.js project. This is the command to do that. When you run a command like that, then you will see a directory structure like this without the .next, because that happens when you first run your app and also when you build it for production. But you'll see an app folder, and also you'll see all these other files. The ones we are interested in is, of course, the app folder, where in which we are building our app, and then the packages.json, which is all the dependencies that we are using. As you can see, we are using Vercel AI SDK. With Anthropic and OpenAI support, we are also using React Resizable Panels. If you do decide to download this, you can actually just go into the panels folder and run npm install, because I won't be including all the node modules as they take up quite a lot of space, sometimes hundreds of megabytes. But if you wanted to install them separately, it's just search for React Resizable Panels. This is how you can install it. And Vercel AI SDK also has explanations on how you can install different providers and stuff like that. So our app directory is going to contain our API. We're going to have an API folder and a chat folder. Next.js, we are using the app router, so we are using folder file-based routing. This is going to define our route, and the route.ts is going to define our API, which we can make calls to GPT-4o and Cloud 3 Sonnet. We'll come back to this. And if you look at our page.tsx, we are importing this panel group, and panel resize handle from React Resizable Panels, and then essentially creating the panel structure. And the actual contents of the panels comes from within this components directory under app directory, cat panel. We're going to review each one of them separately, but normally components folder is placed under the panels folder outside of the app folder, but I just wanted to keep them in one place. This makes more sense to me, but conventionally, components is usually in the same level as the app folder. Let's begin by page.tsx, which is our main page, which is under the app directory directly. When you first install a Next.js project, this will come with a pre-filled Next.js template, but I have replaced it. So let's begin. We do use the use client directive, which enables client-side rendering and interactivity, and we import necessary hooks and components. We will be using useState. UseState is a way to store variables, just like in Streamlit session state. Because React refreshes the page every time we take an action, we can store variables which we don't want to change from action to action, or when we interact with the page. We are importing these panel group, and panel resize from React Resizable Panels. And we are importing our chat panel component from the components/chat panel. This is the path to it. We're going to talk about this right after we talk about page.tsx. Here we define our main component definition. We need to export this home. which is going to actually essentially return some our panels along with some HTML and Tailwind styling. Here we are using the use state for horizontal sizes and vertical sizes. This horizontal size is the variable, and set horizontal sizes is a method that is automatically provided with use state, which sets it. And at first, by default, we set each one of the horizontal sizes to 33% because we are going to have 6 panels, 3 side by side and 2 vertically. And we do the same for vertical sizes, and we use 50% since that is the sizes we are using, as you can see. If we refresh this, 3 horizontally and 2 vertically, so 33% and 50%. So for the handler function for horizontal panel resizing, looks like this. We are using the set horizontal sizes as we actually change them with the new numbers. And for this is used for vertical resizing, and then we return to JavaScript, JSX rather. This is just our main page, which is going to have one vertical panel group, which is going to have 3 panels underneath it, and then we're going to also have another panel with a horizontal panel group with 3 panels underneath it, pretty much. And here is the resize handle between middle and right panels. So we have this handle at each juncture. These are these little holders that you can use to resize. And React resizable components come with many different options. So as you can see, this is fully collapsible. You can actually collapse and open them up like that. So just read about it at React resizable components. You can see all the options here. So roughly, we just create a panel group and then a panel, and then inside the panel group, we create one horizontal and one vertical panel group, and underneath each, we create panels. Everything else, for the most part, is handled for us automatically, except we add the panel resize handles with the style that we want. First, these panels come to us from the chat panel. This is what we are displaying inside. As you can see, inside each one of the panels, we are displaying the chat panel component, which we are importing from our chat panel.tsx. This also uses use client, and it uses use chat from the Vercel AI SDK. I've talked about this more in detail in my previous videos. Do check it out. This handles streaming responses from any model that they support pretty easily. And we are going to use state hook and use effect and use reference. Use effect allows you to make particular changes based on a hook when something changes. So it goes well with when you use with use state, and use references to actually make references to certain components and take actions based on them. In this case, we will talk about it when we get there, but we are creating a final last message div, which is not displayed, which is a value of null, so that actually when we get long messages, if I were to say, tell me a story, then our panel actually auto scrolls downwards to the end of the panel. As you can see, that's how we are able to achieve it using useRef. So here we are defining the chat panel. We do have to default export this as well. Here we are setting the state variable for various settings and UI controls. This first one is for temperature. So you can see that we are going to have use state for temperature models, light mode, dark mode, and system message. So that is what we are defining here. This is the temperature setting, which is automatically set to 1. System message use state, which is by default set to your helpful assistant. This is show system message model. Currently it's false because we're going to trigger it every time we click on this to show it. This is where we can set the system message. And the next one is for the isConfig open, controls the visibility of the configuration panel. If we go back to our panels, we can see that we can actually turn them on and off. If I refresh it, you'll see better. It's going to control this behavior, whether the configuration panel is visible. Okay, next one is dark mode, whether we start with dark mode true, and we can this use state is going to switch between the models. And the next one is the model selection. We start with GPT-4o. You can change this to start with Sonnet if you want it, and it'll trigger. The next one is the use chat hook to manage the chat state and functionality. So we deconstruct these methods out of the use chat, like messages, input, handle input change, and handle submit. Messages are the messages that we receive from our API. If we quickly take a look at our API, we are using result.to AI stream response. This actually automatically communicates with use chat's messages. So it's all handled for us automatically. Input is the input that we are inputting to the chat, and handle input change is actually the one that handles this, that this change has taken place. You can think of input and handle input changes very much like a use state. So these two go hand in hand, and handle submit actually, and whenever we call it, does make our call and submits it to our API. And use chat automatically uses the route API/chat. That's why we create an API folder and a chat folder underneath it. We didn't have to specify this, but we are specifying just to see that you can change this, okay? Our initial messages is going to be an empty list, and we're going to send a body with additional parameters such as temperature, system message, and the model selection. So here, this is where we are using useRef as an HTML div element, which is set to null. This is the messages endref. So this is going to be actually hooked to a use effect, meaning every time messages changes. So use effect works with hooks. So use effect waits for changes in messages because we are passing it right here in this list. And we could have passed more items into it. So whenever something changes in messages, then this takes into effect, which is to scroll into view. That's why we are using this messages endref as an HTML development at the end of every interaction. So we can scroll that into view. That's how we are going to the end of the messages, even when the messages are long. So this handler is for temperature slider change. It just uses the set temperature. See, it uses these methods: set temperature, set system message. A lot of the things we're going to see here now is just like simple functions, which is going to change the values. This is for system message, sets it to a target value of this component. For this input handler form submission. Oh yeah, this is an important one. This, whenever we have typed in something here and then press enter or click this button, this will trigger and eventually submit that event with handle submit, which was, remember, given to us by the use chat automatically. And the next one is for toggling dark mode or light mode. We are using the set is dark mode use state method. Set it, and then for changing the AI model, same similar thing. And then now here we are returning to render the chat panel. So these are just some tailwind options, which is triggered conditionally, whether it's dark mode or not. It's this, if it's dark mode, otherwise this, right? And here we have the configuration button and the panel. You can see whether it's open or not, and it's stylings, SVG icon for the config button. It's where that little arrow comes from. You see right here. I would like to take a moment to talk about the benefits of becoming a patron. As some of you may know, in the last year and a half, I've spent 3,000 hours, over 300 projects. As a patron, you will have access to all the code files so you can get inspiration and iterate quickly. Another benefit is that you'll have access to all my courses, and my most recent and most proud one, the 1000x Masterclass, teaching what I've learned on how to code fast and efficiently. Also the Streamlit course and the Fast API course. In my Patreon, I also have tiers in which you can connect with me one-on-one. Check those out as well. And we can display how we are displaying it with this stroke path that we are drawing over it. And this is the configuration panel. Whenever it's visible, it's going to display these things to us. But before I continue, I'd like to mention that I've been working on my 1000x Masterclass, which actually includes full from start to scratch building of an XJS app along with other walkthroughs. I highly recommend it. You can find it in the link or from my website by clicking on 1000x Masterclass. Anyway, so this is config. Configuration is going to contain, of course, our temperature. The range is set as such. The temperature range for GPT models and Anthropic models are different, but we are handling it in the route.ts. Here we are doing a temperature adjustment. We are pretty much dividing it by 2. The configuration also includes a model selection dropdown, which we can select either GPT-4o or Cloud 3.5 Sonnet. And if this is changed, then handle model change, as we have seen up here, is going to handle it and set the value for us. This is how we are able to change the models. It's also going to include a button for dark mode with an SVG, switches from dark mode to light mode, pretty much toggles it with the toggle dark mode function. And we have the system message model button. We checked whenever it's on click, we switch the model, whether the model is going to show or not. And then, of course, it is an SVG as well. And then chat messages display area is here. We just get the messages from use chat, as we have seen up here. Remember when we unpacked the use chat, there was messages. So this is the messages we are receiving. And now we can just map over them with the proper, if it's user or otherwise, with the proper styling. And here is the message endref that were talking about. As you can see, it's always at the end, but its value is set to null, but we use this to auto scroll to the end of the messages. I hope this makes sense, ref for auto scrolling. And the chat input form is going to on submit trigger the handle form submit, which will trigger handle submit of use chat, as we have spoken of. And it handles its styling, whether it's dark mode or not, and it takes in a value, which is going to be our input. As you know, we got the input from use chat as well. And we have a button which is going to trigger on submit. We can also trigger it with an enter. And here's the other SVG for the send message icon at the end. And here's the system message model. If the system message model is set to shown, then we show this and get the value out of that and use the handle system message change. And we have a close button, which is going to close it. Such as when we take a look here, if I click on this, then it's going to show. When we change it, that's the input that handles it. And when we close it, it's going to close it. So that's it for our component. I hope you find it useful. Now let's come back to our route. We are importing both OpenAI and Anthropic. You have to install these separately, but if you download this code, when you do npm install, then it's going to install them for you automatically. This is the Vercel AI SDK, and this is its Anthropic and OpenAI client. We allow streaming responses up to 30 seconds. After that, I believe it gets cut off. I never ran into this condition. And we checked, when we receive, we are first setting a configuration. If the backend front end sends us GPT-4o, and we use this configuration object, provider OpenAI model GPT-4o. If it sends this, then we use Anthropic with the appropriate model. Again, we have a async export function, which takes in a post request, and it receives the messages, temperature, system message, and model, and we'll just log it for information. And I just haven't defined the type of this since we're using TypeScript. It's giving me a warning, but this doesn't really affect anything. It might in production setting, you can just define a type for it. That's all. So we double check if models exist. Otherwise, we say invalid model selected. Other than that, the provider and model ID are set by this AI models configuration object. And then we pretty much try to get the temperature and check if it's anthropic. Then we adjust the temperature for anthropic. We log it into the console terminal. And then we pretty much await text, stream text, which is a Vercel AI method with the provider, with the system message and the temperature. We also pass on along the messages. And then when we receive the response, we use to-AI stream response. There's an error, we print it. Otherwise, everything is handled automatically for us. So when we say hi, this is automatically streamed to us in the front end. So this is how it works in a nutshell. Like I said, I won't be, if you want to become a patron, download this app. I won't include the node modules. So just as I put it in the instruction, when you download this app, just go into the panels directory, since that's where package.json is. and then run npm install, and all of these packages kind of like pip similar to pip install -r requirements.txt. It will install these dependencies for you. Also, if you'd like to get in touch with me one-on-one, I have tiers in my Patreon from which you can get in touch with me for one-on-one meetings. I have a 1 hour per month option and 3 hours per month option. Take a look at that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I would like to take a moment to talk about the benefits of becoming a patron. As some of you may know, in the last year and a half, I've spent 3,000 hours, over 300 projects. As a patron, you will have access to all the code files so you can get inspiration and iterate quickly. Another benefit is that you'll have access to all my courses. And my most recent and most proud one, the 1000x Masterclass, teaching what I've learned on how to code fast and efficiently. Also the Streamlit course and the Fast API course. In my Patreon, I also have tiers in which you can connect with me one-on-one. Check those out as well.